Hi there. I have a number of books for us today. The first one is Gobble It Up by Jim Arnsky. Typically in my classroom, I would read this straight through. Actually, I'd sing it straight through. It's a book set to song. There is a CD in the back, and as it says, a fun song about eating. You go through the book, and it shows, wild raccoon eats crawdads, and crocodile. He eats baby ducklings, and the shark. What does he eat? There's a shark. He eats fish. And then there's the whale, and the whale goes after the squid. There's a close-up of the squid. And then there's a panda bear. It eats bamboo. And I would go through and I'd sing it to them. I will not sing it on this video due to copyright issues, but we'd go over the types of animals, and are they herbivores, are they carnivores, are they omnivores? Like this raccoon here is an omnivore. That means it eats both meat, typically in the form of other animals, and it eats plants and vegetables. It might dig up your garden. And the alligator and the shark here are carnivores. They eat meat. And the meat they eat is other animals. And here's our omnivore, the panda bear. He eats bamboo. I'd also talk about if a human chooses to only eat plants, they're called a vegetarian, and it's different than a herbivore, because herbivores can't eat meat even if they wanted to, or they would get sick. And humans that only eat vegetables and only eat plant products are called vegetarians or vegans if they're more strict, because they could digest meat, but they choose not to do so for ethical reasons. I'd ask the children if they've seen any of these animals in real life, like they'd see a panda in a zoo. They may see the raccoon in their backyard, and they would see a crocodile in the zoo, and the shark. They might see smaller versions of sharks in aquariums, and maybe if they were lucky, they've been to the shore and they've seen a whale. Hey, baby. Sorry for that interruption. My cats have decided they needed to eat as well. We would go over, have they seen these animals before? And then we would talk about, are these animals being mean, quote unquote mean? Is a raccoon mean because it eats crawdads, or if it steals your chickens? No, they're not being mean. They're animals and they're carnivores, and that's what they eat. This is how they survive. They want to live, and they're not being mean. They're not being bad. They're being animals. And animals are not held to the same morals as humans. And we would also talk about, we eat meat too. Chicken nuggets are chickens. Hamburgers are made out of beef, which is cow. And bacon comes from pigs. And as one of my kids told me one year, they didn't know that bacon came out of a pig, but they did know after he told them that bacon comes from a pig, they knew how to get that bacon out. Their parents hunted. And in a similar theme, we have the book Carnivores. And a joke in the beginning, the carnivore food pyramid. Elephants, narwhals, rabbits. Carnivores, written by Aaron Reynolds. And we have a lion, a shark, a wolf, and the story goes on, and it talks about, well, the lion is being called Bad Kitty. The shark is being teased because of food frenzies, and the wolf would like you to know that he didn't really eat Little Red Riding Hood. And in the story they go on, they decide they're going to be vegetarians, which didn't work out too well. And they, well, maybe they're going to try to have disguises, which also doesn't work out too well. And I would discuss with the kids, is it a good idea to pretend to be something you're not? Is that lying? Well, and then next they come up, they have Owl. And Owl tells them that, they're not being bad. They're carnivores. Carnivores eat meat. It's what they do. They have to eat meat. They have to eat meat to live. So I went to the last book. And I would probably read this book and the book before on the same day, or on one day, and then this book the following day. They accept their carnivores, and they eat the owl. And we would also discuss with this book, are they being mean? No, they're not being mean. Though this book does show them being a little bit more happy and enjoying eating meat. Like he jokes about, well, if the zebras give him a dirty look, well, he'll eat them. Free seeds. And bunnies, they have really negative attitudes anyways. Yeah, well. It's a really sweet book. I like it. I like to read it to my kids. This is an animal book, but it's more also of a accounting book. I'd go through the book without the dust jacket. Well, of course, in all these, I'd go over this is the spine of the book. This is the title of the book. This is the author. This is the illustrator. I typically read this book fairly quickly. I keep the rhythm up so they keep their attention. And when I go 1, 2, 3, I go 1, 2, 3s in a tree. And every time I would count, I'd have my fingers up to 10. And when we come to the different pages where there's 3 objects. He goes, well, we'll count the 3 roly-polies, we'll count the 3 mangoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we go on, we count the 6, we count the 6. For my older kids, especially, I would have maybe, we would count by 3s, 3, 6, 9, 12. I would also point out the interjections like yum, or we'd also go over there. There's this book counts up to 12. There are 12 in a dozen. We would talk about, well, you go and you get a dozen donuts, Typically you'd buy a dozen eggs. At the very end of the book, though, we'll discuss, why. Because we count up all the way to 12, and then we get to 12, and we count one cat. And the next page is the crows leave. Well, why are the crows leaving? Which, for my preschoolers, sometimes is a hard concept. But I think it's a good concept. And Dandy the Lion. This is a book on helping others. It's a little bit more wordy. I'd make sure it's a point of the year where the kids are able to sit down a little longer, probably midway through or towards the end. Maybe in the beginning, depending how well I have their attention. Or I may read this while they're sitting down doing another activity. Sometimes I read them books while they're eating. It helps them eat and not talk. And their parents typically appreciate a bit of food in them. I appreciate a bit of food in them, so they have a better day. Hungry kids are not happy kids. Well, the lion helps the raccoon. The raccoon helps a mouse. The mouse helps a blue jay. And the blue jay actually goes all the way back and helps the lion. And it goes full circle. And we talk about, well, was it nice to help each other? Did they seem to like it? And and if you help people, people usually want to help you. And we might talk about, well, where's the setting of it? Where does it take place? Where is this mountain lion? Where does it doesn't have a real solid setting. I mean, you see some grass, you see some dirt. You can tell where these animals typically live. But we can take a good guess, and you may think it's in the desert. Maybe in a little bit more of a forested area. I typically let my kids decide on where it takes place because it doesn't directly say it, and there isn't any direct clues. In the back there is discussion questions. And continuing in our animal theme, there is The Mitten, a Ukrainian folktale. I like this book because it has side panels, and it almost tells another story also within the side panels. See, there's the grandmother getting her wheel, getting some yarn, and the moles over here. And we see it on the next page, and we have the rabbit. We see the rabbit on the next page. And on this side, there's the boy. He's looking for his mitten all this time. Because, in the beginning of the story, the grandmother doesn't want to make white mittens for him because they'll get lost. But he insists he really would like some. And she tells him, you just have to keep track of them because the first thing she will check when he comes home is that he's safe. And the second thing, if he has his mittens. Go on, well, he loses a mitten, of course. And one animal goes in, then another animal goes in. When I read this book to my preschool class, every time a new animal enters the mitten, we count how many animals are in the mitten. Right now, there's 2 animals in the mitten. Well, now there's 3 animals in the mitten. And another one wants to come in. So that makes it 4. And then 5. And a little bit of a counting exercise. And we'll also talk, what are the reasons that, well, that Mitten's getting awfully cramped? Why are these animals letting more animals in? Well, like the mole was first, so no one argued with him. And the rabbit, well, the rabbit has kickers for feet, and the hedgehog has quills, and the owl has talons, and the badger has what they call diggers, his paws, his claws, and the fox has pretty scary teeth, and the bear, well, nobody argues with a bear. Well, towards the beginning of the book, we would talk about, well, this, in the story, this is Nicky. Is Nicky a boy's name? Is Nicky a girl's name? Or is Nicky one of those names that goes either way? It's both. And at the very end, well, at the very end, it's two different sizes. And we would talk about why the mittens are two different sizes. We would also talk about, what season is this in? It has snow on the ground. Nicky has to wear mittens. Where's the habitat? Where's it this takes place in? Where's the setting? Well, it seems to be in a wooded area. It's around a cottage. But there's trees. And the animals that are in here are typically ones you'd find in the woods. A bear, an owl. Owls live in trees. And then a little bit more of a lighthearted book, Kissing Coyotes. And this is a book that's easily to dramatize. I mean, it's really good to dramatize it because, well, Jack Rabbit here is a bit of a character. And there's in making different voices for all of them. We would discuss, well, what is a watering hole? Because what is a watering hole? And later on he makes a bet. What is a bet? Is it a good thing to make a bet? Can you make a bet on a silly thing like, if I'm the first one, well, you have to do a silly dance, and that's kind of an innocent bet. But there's things we shouldn't bet. We shouldn't bet our lunch money. We shouldn't bet things that our parents don't want us to give away. And Truth or Dare is a little bit of a betting game too. Oh, we would also talk about, well, coyotes. Coyotes are carnivores. And going up and making a bet to kiss some coyotes, probably not a smart thing for a jackrabbit to do, because he might get eaten. Well, he kisses the baby coyote, he kisses the mama coyote, he kisses the daddy coyote, and well, they all wake up, and then they chase him. We talk about the rattlesnake. We talk about, well, are rattlesnakes a dangerous snake to have around, or is it like our corn snakes we find? Is it an innocent snake? Is it okay to watch for a little bit? And we talk about, well, why does a rattlesnake hiss at him? Then we'll talk about longhorns, because most of the animals up to this point have been wild animals, and we'll talk about the fact that these are wild animals, and longhorns are a bit of a domesticated animal. And then we'll come to the skunk, and we'll talk about, well, why did the skunk try to spray him? And then we'll talk about, well, what happened to the coyotes, and why did they stop chasing the jackrabbit? And we'll talk about, did the jackrabbit really win the bet? Well, he'd argue he did. But, maybe that was a little too much danger. And I guess he didn't learn his lesson because he's going to make another bet. And after talking about a watering hole, I may bring up this book. This is the watering hole book. I really like these books with cutouts. I mean, I think it really is interesting for both me and the children. Okay. We have, it's a counting book. 1, 2, 3. The first one being Africa. And then South America. No. Africa, India, South America, the Himalayas, North America, the rivers and streams, then China. I remember what this one is. Europe and the Galapagos Islands, and then Australia. What's interesting about the first 10 pages is all the animals up here and all the animals down there are found in the background. Like, there's an elephant and a zebra. Here's one. I don't think it's a lion. No, it's a cheetah. Also on all the pages is these little frogs. These are little amphibians with clothing on and jewelry on. There's a monkey of some. Well, no, a chimp. There's a chimp there. And it goes on for all 10 numbered pages. There's a bison. And you can talk about different habitats, different continents. But after the first 10 pages, the water's gone. Because the first 10 pages, the watering hole has been getting smaller. It's getting smaller and smaller. Well, where did it go? And we might talk about the water cycle, about evaporation, about rain. And we also might talk about seasons. Some seasons are wetter than others. Like some places have monsoon season. Like in the end it rains, and it rains, and all the animals come back because the water hole came back. I really liked reading this book because of it's interactive, finding to the different animals. And I probably would read this on the rug and then take the book to a table and we would find all the animals. And it's really nice, very nice. I like the illustrations, very nice artwork. A lot of detail has been put into it. And I believe in showing the children beautiful things. Because a lot of the time they'll spend between, especially if you have extended program, they spend a lot of time within the 4 walls of the center. And we might go on a field trip every so once in a while. And there's places like where I live where you can't quite go on a lot of field trips because the insurance for it is quite expensive. So unless we can have a quick walk over there, it's probably not someplace we're going to go. Tiger. Another book I'd probably read straight through to them. It's a very informational book. We'd read this while we're talking about animals. We're talking about, cats. And it would go along with the theme of whatever it is. If we're talking about zoos, or of course, animals in general, animals we find in animals that we would find in the jungle. We would talk about the difference between territory and habitat. We might follow this up or have it right after a trip to the zoo. We would discuss what a habitat is. We would discuss that, they like to go swimming, and not a lot of cats like to go swimming. And we would compare and contrast it to, maybe the domesticated cats we have at home. It's that they sleep most of the day. That they have very similar anatomy. They have very similar way they care for their young, and that both go hunting, and they have to play with their siblings to learn to hunt. And I might point out to them that they play at school. They play at school so they can learn to be adults. And this is a book I typically read this book as just fun, as some way to fill in, like if my co-teacher is still setting up table time, or the art still didn't quite get put out as quickly as either one of us were hoping, because it's a very fun book. It's a very easy it's a very nice book to dramatize, giving the attitude that the cat would have. And most of them have, they either have a cat at home, or they know someone has a cat, maybe their neighbor, and they find it funny too, well, that's my spot. And then, falling asleep in boxes. And we might compare it to the cats they do have at home. Do their cats do this at home? And it's a very fun book to read. And the kids quite like it, especially if you voice, here, where is that? There is one page where all he does is meow. There it is. Where is it? Oh. And he's afraid of the vacuum. Well, there is a page where all he does is meow because he wants to eat. And he's afraid of the vacuum. And then he looks out the window, and there's the squirrel. And the squirrel is very fun. It's very fun to read because you can do like really pressured speech, and just have him just like the annoying person that yells, the crazy person that yells at you on the street. That's usually how I read this. Here it is. And he's hungry, and he goes meow, 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 meow. He doesn't want dry food, he wants wet food. Meow, meow, meow. And then he wants more, and there's more. Meow. And then he's bored. And he goes back, and we would talk about maybe he does kind of pick on the other cat in the house. And he's wondering when his sunbeam's going to come back. And it looks like he's going to be waiting for a little bit. Once again, a very fun book. Very sweet book. I read that book probably once every 2 weeks. I mean, I will admit, I sometimes you just read a book that you enjoy. Because if you enjoy teaching a class, your kids enjoy being in class. Way out west lives a coyote named Frank. And well, some of my books are used. They come from other teachers. And honestly, used books are a lot easier to come by sometimes and a lot cheaper. I mean, I'm probably not the only one that buys off thrift books. There's a lot of animals. There's the coyote, and there's rabbits, and there's skunks, and there's there's Gala monsters, and I think there's even a horned lizard in here, and there's a scorpion and a tortoise. And we would talk a lot about, the animals of the Southwest. And we talk about we might talk a little bit about what activities they're doing. Like going out they have this, watching the sunset, going out, running in the hills, hiking for humans, finding animals. I know these are not called pictographs, but I can never remember what they actually are. But the primitive images on rocks. And you probably would use this book as a jumping off point when we're talking about habitats. Especially, we use a core knowledge preschool, and there is a whole unit on habitats, and this would be perfect for the desert habitat. I usually read A Brave Little Owl, not in group time. During during table time, take a couple kids over, sit, instead of sitting in a chair, we'll sit directly on the rug right next to each other, because this book is a very feely book. And I always viewed this as a little bit more a personal read book, because we're talking about, owl scared, owl's afraid of the dark, and we're talking about how owl's gonna get over being afraid of the dark, and he talks to the other animals, and there's the squirrels, and and he talks to his mom and his dad. We might talk a little bit about family, and it's probably not coming through on the video, but there's raised, all the images have a little bit of raised in it, and it's a very nice book just to touch. And especially some of my more children with needs, maybe a little bit on the spectrum, it's a very soothing book to just rub. And it's also a very nice looking book. It's a nice book to look at. And sometimes we don't even read it. We just rub it and we look at the pictures. So it is a very nice book. Very beautiful images. And for other preschool teachers that use core knowledge, will be very familiar with, this folktale. Though this is told a little differently than the story that is presented in the core knowledge curriculum. In the core knowledge curriculum, it is the city mouse and the country mouse. This one is the town mouse, and the country mouse. And in core knowledge, it is simply, they're bachelor mice. And in this book, they have wives. And instead of the city mouse coming and talking to the country mouse, and they're both together, both in the country and the city. And here's the town mouse and the country mouse. They like house swap. And then they come across different dangers. And the city mice, well, they're not used to the country and the dangers, the owls and the rain, and you're outside. Because, city mice are usually inside mice. But the country mice, well, they're not used to cats. And, and mouse traps. I mean, you don't find a mouse trap in the middle of the woods. I like this book to compare and contrast to add on a little bit to the core knowledge curriculum and expand it a little, because I sometimes think the core knowledge curriculum moves a little fast for the kids, especially when you have some kids with needs, or English language learners. And it's a folk tale, and I think the more folk tales the children are exposed to, the better. And at the end, they both go back. The country mouse goes back to the country. The city mice go back to the city. But these also have panels, like the Mitten. You can go through the panels and almost have a little bit of a wordless story. Because you see, there's dangers in the panels, in the side panels, that aren't in the main panels. They didn't see these dangers. They didn't see the owl. They didn't see the cat. And also a little bit of, the story that doesn't happen in the main story. Something happens to the owl, and that's why they didn't get caught. And the cat slipped. See, the cat slipped over here. And we would talk about that. And, sometimes we're in danger when we don't know we're in danger. I think talking about danger with our kids is important. Unfortunately, danger is real and exists in the world, and if we don't talk about it, they're not going to learn about it. And if we shelter them too much, it's not good for them, and it's not good for the teenagers and adults they'll have to grow into. And especially in preschool, they're going to have to grow into older kids, which are going to have to probably get off the bus on their own and maybe walk a block or two, because very few kids are dropped directly in front of their house. I mean, the only kids I know that are directly dropped in front of their house are the kids that come off the littler bus. Now, here's going to the zoo. I like to present this one not necessarily during the typical time that we have for, our circle time where we're reading and discussing books. I like to present this one during music time, because it is sung. It even gives you sheet music in the front. And it's sung, and it's very sweet. I like it. Because Dad's going to take them to the zoo. And they say, and how about you? Are you coming too? And on every page it shows Dad interacting with them, which is kind of nice, because sometimes Mom ends up to be what they call the default parent in the books. Well, you're going off with Mom, and Mom's doing this, and I think it's good to show Dad as an equal partner. Both parents, parent. And dads are important. And I also like how on every page we see the zookeeper. And we see the zookeeper working and taking care of the animals. Because it's as important for them to know as an occupation. Hopefully they see a zookeeper when they go. They see the zookeepers taking care of the animals. At the end of the day, the zookeeper's tired. The animals are tired. And Dad and the kids are tired, and they go home. And then Mom's going to take them to the zoo tomorrow. Dad took them to the zoo today, and Mom's going to take them to the zoo the next day. I really like equal parenting in this. But I typically do this during music time, and, we sing it. And we'll go straight through. We won't stop on every page and discuss it. If we discuss these things, we'll discuss it afterwards. And probably not all that in depth. Usually, they're going up and getting some water before the next song. And this one is not so much with wild animals, it's domestic animals. It, you know, Bronco and Friends, A Party to Remember. This is a nice book for inclusion, you know, because, you know, the dog has glasses, and we'll see a chicken in here that has an eye patch, and there's a bird with a bandage, and there's another dog in here. He uses a mobility device. Find him. He uses like one of those little doggy wheelchair things. Throughout the book, you know, Bronco's helping his friends because they all have to find their puzzle piece for the party, and you know, Bronco can't find his puzzle piece, but you know, he can't see all that well. He has glasses, but you know, he can use a sense of smell to help them out and find out well where they're going. There's the doggy wheelchair. Now, it's a very nice book for inclusion. So, you know, the message is, you know, everybody has abilities. Everybody has the way they're special. Sometimes we have differences, and we might have a little problem. You know, we might wear glasses. We might have hearing aids. We might use a wheelchair. But, you know, we're all of us have worth. And we're all special, and we all have something to give. He found his puzzle piece. And it's a very happy book. It's a very feely book, kind of, a little bit. It's like, and it's a party, and at the end, there is some scripture. So it does come from, you know, a little bit of a God-centered curriculum. But I think it's still a perfectly good book for, you know, a secular preschool. I mean, there isn't anything that I would say that you couldn't read in a secular classroom. Inky the Octopus is actually not one of my favorite books. It is one of the favorite books of my co-teacher. And partially because it's a true story. It's based off a true after a real octopus that escaped, and I believe he did make his way to the ocean. And we will talk about the octopus in an aquarium, at an aquarium. And you know, there's two different uses of the word aquarium, because there's the aquarium he lives in with the glass walls and the water, and then there's the aquarium that you go to that is kind of like a zoo for sea animals, because he's in an aquarium at an aquarium. And we'll talk about, well, you know, he wants to be free, and we'll talk about he wants to be free and why does he want to be free. And there's also a lot of rhyming words throughout it, like lid and squid, more and ignore, free and see, seek and weak, fish and wish, ajar and far. You know, we'll talk about, you know, why is he escaping? How is he escaping? You know, and we're talking about, well, how are they going to tell where he went? You know, because there are signs. And how in the morning when, you know, the aquarium workers come back, how are they going to know where Inky went? Because, I mean, the other squids can't tell him. The crab can't tell him. And he goes all the way out to sea. And he goes down and dive and alive, rhyming with words throughout it. And it's a sweet book. And then it talks about the real Inky and his ingenious escape. And then there's other odd octopuses, like Flo and Sid. Flo took apart the water valve in her tank. letting seawater pour out for about 10 hours until the first aquarium worker arrived in the morning. And then there's facts about squids. This would probably fit in very nicely with, you know, ocean-based themes, which I believe is also, if I remember correctly, is also part of the core knowledge curriculum. Okay. Thank you very much for watching this. I hope this helps in the classroom. Goodbye.